Please welcome the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker for his weekly appearance. And we haven't spent enough time, JB, on the other two games, the Saturday, Sunday games in the CFL. So hopefully we can get to those. But can you give me, please, your assessment of last night's Riders win over the Argos, 30-23? Riders that good or Argos that bad?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that what, you talked about, Lapo talking about I lost my train of thought. The quarterback for
Dukes.
the Argos, Dukes. About him being perfect. Okay. Well, when you first take a guy who hasn't done anything and you bring him along and you give him things slowly and you let him grow and he doesn't make mistakes, you're going to win games when you have a great defense. The Saskatchewan Roughriders have a great defense. I mean, Montreal's defense you'd have to put above them right now, but I don't think by very much because that secondary is growing by the minute in Saskatchewan. And I think Roland Milligan is as good a player as there is in the league, as a tackler, as a ball hawk, as just everything. Jameer Thurman is all over the field, understanding exactly what Corey wants. And they're getting more out of Micah Johnson than I thought they could get at this. I mean, I was watching him in the fourth quarter, and he was running around and making plays, and that's impressive. So if that defense keeps playing like they are, the Riders are going to be in games. Now, here's what I was going to say about Dukes. Dukes played perfect for 2 weeks, for the most part. He threw 5 touchdowns. They didn't turn the ball over. If you don't turn the ball over in this league, I mean, they beat the BC Lions, which was a real good win. They beat Edmonton, who hasn't won a game yet, but they still did enough things to win because they didn't give the game away. Well, what happens is now they go to game 3, okay, and they give Dukes a little bit more against Montreal. And again, he didn't play as well. He's getting a little more. Plus, I thought Noel Thorpe just did a masterful job in terms of scheming him. A lot of zone, mostly all zone. They didn't, even when they blitzed, usually when you blitz, you play man-to-man. They blitzed and played zone, and he was confused by where guys were dropping and things like that. So now you get to game 4 with Cameron Dukes, and again, you're trying to grow his package, and it got to that point where it's too much. It was obvious in the fourth quarter that he was just throwing the ball up. And again, I thought that a lot of the same things that Noel Thorpe did, Corey Mace did the same thing. He played a lot of zone coverage. He would run zone pressures, bring guys off an edge. And I tried to show a little bit of that because Toronto was doing that to Shea Pedersen. And I thought Mark Mueller made a great adjustment. And actually bringing the guy off the edge, they blocked him up, got Emelis the ball, and then some poor tackling by Toronto. That's the other thing about Saskatchewan is their secondary tackles very well, just like Montreal. If your secondary doesn't tackle well, like Toronto's does not tackle well, you're going to be in for, problems because teams are going to throw the ball underneath and you got to come up and make tackles. So the Cameron Dukes thing is a little bit of maybe Ryan Dinwiddie giving him more than he should. And then him, when the game was 20-20, I said to the rest of the panel, I said, I don't think Saskatchewan can score. And sure enough, they did. They didn't until they got the turnovers. They got the ball deep in their end. They didn't want to have to punt out there, so they took some chances, threw some edge routes, and 2 of them, he just overthrew Coxie. It went off his hands and got intercepted on the Sales play. And then the other, he just trying to throw a seam, and you watch that, and he just had no business throwing that, trying to do too much to win the game.
For sure.
So
we got to speed this up.
That's my take
Ottawa,
on the quarterbacks.
Yeah. Ottawa, Winnipeg tonight. I love the fact the CFL, here's a quirk, you probably saw it. Never have 3 teams been 0-4 to start a season like they are this year. And Winnipeg is one of them, Edmonton and Hamilton. Never happened. What do you think happens tonight in Winnipeg? Ottawa's there.
Well, the matchup for Winnipeg, I don't think is good. I mean, their weaknesses are secondary, and Streveler, I don't know if people remember back to 2019, but he was the quarterback when they brought Zach Caleros in. Streveler was a quarterback, and they were getting ready to get fired. I mean, they couldn't win a game, and I think he's very single-dimensional. They had a 2nd and 12, I remember. This was before Zach got hurt, and they ran a quarterback draw. And I thought, at some point he's going to have to throw. And when he threw, it was easy to see why he wasn't throwing, because I didn't think was very accurate. And I don't know if you can win with that kind of thing. Ottawa, on the other hand, plays great up front. What they do is give up big plays. Their secondary has been struggling. They've got guys hurt back there. Dandridge is hurt. And Money Hunter's hurt. So they've got new guys back there. But if you don't have the people that can exploit it, and Winnipeg has not shown that they have a playmaker in that receiving bunch. I mean, Dembski is kind of gets, maybe people pay more attention to him because you got no Dalton Schoen in there. You don't have that big play guy, and they haven't shown they have a big play guy. So I think this is a good matchup for Ottawa. I think coming off of that win that they pulled out from nowhere, I give them a real chance, because I do think Winnipeg has lost their aura. They still have a lot of the good players, and Brady Oliveira at any time can wake up and the offensive line can start to block people. But there's just a lot of things that seem wrong with this team. So I would pick Ottawa actually in the game.
I picked Ottawa earlier in the week.
To quote a great prognosticator I heard, Traveler looks great in a coat, not so great on the field.
How about that?
I think that's going to come back and haunt me, but I'm going to stick with it. I picked Winnipeg earlier in the week until I saw that Zach wasn't playing, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going over to Ottawa. We got a lot of Stampeders fans writing me wanting some analysis on their game at Montreal. And for them, it's the game of the week. Should be a good one. Stamps at Al's. What's your thoughts on that one going in?
Well, they're gonna get tested for sure. DeMario Houston's not in, and I think one of their problems is their secondary. They got a lot of young guys back there. Now you take DeMario Houston out. I think this is going to be a tough call for Saskatchewan going in to Montreal. And again, Jake Mayer at quarterback, they're going to give him, that defense is going to give him problems. Noel Thorpe is very good, and he will have some things that Jake's going to have to play his best game. And can he do that? I mean, he's shown he can. I like their receivers. Dedrick Mills didn't practice a lot this week. He's nicked up. So they've got some problems injury-wise that make this matchup even tougher for them. So I think they're in tough. It would be a shock to see them win this game because of the things I talked about. But again, they have playmakers. They have guys who can take it to the house. And Mark and Michelle, those guys, they can take it any time. And when you have that, you have a great opportunity.
You're very close to that Hamilton market, both literally and figuratively. So I'm wondering what you're hearing out of there at 0-4 with BC coming in the Sunday game.
Yeah, this is a tough ball game for them because BC is trying to stay with Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan and BC play next week in what will be the two best teams in the West for sure. It should be a great matchup. You're going to get a much better look at what is Saskatchewan. Right now they're an undefeated team, and you have to say as good as any team in the league. The BC Lions go into Toronto and lose to the Argonauts. That's their only blemish, but they have such firepower. So for Hamilton, they fired Boudreau. They've had major problems on special teams since the beginning of the season, from too many men on the field penalties to, I think the squib kick. It just like where that came from, I have no idea. So I think there was a lot of things that went into that. They bring Dennis McKnight in. Can that invigorate them? Can that make them better immediately? Maybe not huge. I think Bo Levi has been playing okay at home. I think he's played great. So he needs to get back to the game he was playing and get those receivers to help him. Tim White's got to play at a high level. Can they beat the BC Lions? They absolutely can beat the BC Lions. Will they beat the BC Lions? That's a tough question because there's just so many question marks right now with that club. They're claiming players. They're still moving their roster around, trying to figure out where to play their Canadians. They're just they seem to be Canadian poor, and I think that's caught up to them. And they claimed Dwayne Knight away from the Argos this week off their practice roster. So again, they're still trying to fill their roster, right? So are they good enough? You know, if the good Bo Levi comes out and those receivers play like they can, they absolutely can beat the BC Lions. But their secondary is weak. Their defense has played poorly, and VA is not a guy you want to put a mediocre defense against.
No. Well, and I saw a stat that Scott Milanovich is 2-15 in his last 17 games as a head coach, something like that.
Yeah.
And people are saying that
some
he's
of those were
overrated.
with me. Obviously, some of those were with me, and that was when Ricky Ray
go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that are that, again, you can look at things like that. Ricky Ray got hurt. We brought Drew Willie in thinking, you know, that was it was a Grey Cup year for us, and probably pressed too much to try to, and we lost the last few games, obviously, and I lost my job, and you know, so he struggled a little bit, but I think you have to look at the full thing of his history. What does he do? He leaves here and he goes to the NFL and actually gets, you know, a different perspective of things. And to bring him back and to say that he's a 2-15, I think is just an inaccurate depiction of who Scott Milanovich is. Now, is he in a ideal situation in Hamilton? No, I don't think he is. I mean, who's Ed Hervey's the GM and Orlando is, I'm not sure what Orlando is. And, you know, they just, what are they? Who's responsible for what? I mean, are the players not good enough? Is the coaching not good enough? It's tough to say. And when you have those kind of questions, they reek through your locker room, and it makes going from losing to winning tough without winning a few games. It's like what Edmonton's going through. What was the biggest game of the year? Saskatchewan versus Edmonton. Saskatchewan won that. They're 4-0. They all believe. And Edmonton lost it. And they all have questions. And that's the way it works in pro football. And that's what's happening in Toronto right now. I honestly believe that.
I agree with you. And like we could sit there and say, you know, the Riders are 4-0. They could be 2-2. They could be 1-3. But they're not. They're 4-0. As you
4-0.
say, they're getting belief, right? And they are getting confidence in each other. And it's really interesting what you say. Scott Milanovich, I think, is an outstanding head coach, an outstanding guy. And he knows, and the talent just doesn't seem to be there. But it's funny because Paul LaPolice was with us this week, and he was talking about dealing with the media and how some coaches don't want to do that. And I thought of when you said the best role you thought was being an offensive coordinator. And I get it now. You didn't have to deal with the media. You just had to coach. You didn't have to worry about the talent. Right? That's why guys like it so much. And Lapo was like, if you don't like dealing with the media, don't be a head coach. You know, so that was a real fun discussion with him.
That's
okay,
why it
Jim,
was my
we'll be watching.
Job.
There you go. There you go. Well, you're doing a great job on the panel. I love it.
Weekend.
Keep it. You betcha. Enjoy the ball. We'll talk to you.
Very good.
Exactly. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you.